Hey everyone, Lord of Leaks here. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has been expanding for nearly 20 years, and seitdem, it has covered millennia, spawned multiple timelines, and thrown itself into the multiverse head first. Because of that, understanding the order of events requires keeping a massive internal chronology of dozens of projects in your head. And as we all know, not every one of them is exactly a masterpiece. So over the next few minutes, we'll take a quick trip through the sacred MCU timeline, from the very beginning all the way to the turning point. And we start long before the Big Bang. Before that moment existed celestial beings known as the Celestials. They shaped planets, lit up stars, and then filled their creations with different forms of life. Realizing they needed help to spread life further, the earliest Celestials began planting embryo seeds of future Celestials inside young worlds. A new Celestial emerges only when intelligent life reaches a critical point and produces enough energy for its birth, though the process does destroy the planet entirely. To make this go faster, the Celestials engineered biomodified predators called deviants, creatures meant to hunt down dominant species, allowing intelligent life to grow without fear of extinction. But the plan backfired. The deviants became so efficient that they started wiping out all life, blocking the birth of new Celestials. To stop them, the Celestials created the Eternals, synthetic beings sent to various worlds to eliminate deviants and protect intelligent life. The locals eventually began worshipping them as gods and the first superheroes, but the Eternals had no idea that they were actually preparing planets for destruction for another Celestial to hatch. After each emergence, the Eternals' memories were erased so they could be reused on the next world without guilt or emotional baggage. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the cosmos, Ego appeared. Unlike other Celestials, he wasn't born from a planet. He developed consciousness on his own and seeded countless worlds with fragments of himself, trying to create another Celestial similar to him. During all of this, the universe also experienced the Big Bang. From it emerged 6 primal singularities, governing time, space, reality, mind, power, and soul. Eventually, they would be known as the Infinity Stones, each scattered across the universe. Millions of years before humanity, a meteor of vibranium slammed into Earth. The impact split it in two. One half landed in Africa, the land that would become Wakanda, after a warrior shaman received a vision from the goddess Bast and consumed the vibranium-altered heart-shaped herb. The herb granted him power that would begin a dynasty of warrior kings known as the Black Panther. The second fragment of the meteor sank into the Atlantic. While the universe keeps stretching outward and Ego launches his own cosmic expansion, the memory-wiped Eternals arrive on Earth roughly 5,000 years before our era. Deep inside the planet lies a dormant seed of a Celestial, Arishimat, though that won't become clear until many millennia later. For ages, the Eternals defend humanity and eventually believe they've eliminated every last deviant. After this supposed victory, the group scatters across continents, giving room for other godlike beings to reveal themselves. That's how humanity encounters the Asgardians for the first time, visits that eventually transform into Norse mythology. Meanwhile, in Asgard itself, things were much more complicated. It stood as the ruling realm among the so-called 9 worlds, located on the branches of the Great Yggdrasil, effectively a cluster of connected planets. Around 3000 BCE, the Asgardians wage war against the Dark Elves, led by Malekith. Odin's father secures a victory, the Dark Elves fall into slumber, and the Aether, later revealed as the Reality Stone, is hidden away. Then, Odin, alongside his firstborn daughter Hela, begins a brutal conquest of all 9 realms. It was during this era that the warhammer Mjolnir was forged in the heart of a dying star, the very weapon Hela once wielded. But her bloodlust spirals out of control, forcing Odin to turn against her. After she slaughtered the Valkyrie, only one survives, the future Valkyrie, who escapes Asgard and spends centuries drowning her trauma in alcohol on the junk world known as Sakaar. Eventually, the immortal Grand Master converts this wasteland into a gladiator arena. Odin imprisons Hela in another dimension and erases any record of her existence. Sometime later, he welcomes his son, Thor. And not long after that, he slays a frost giant and adopts the giant's child, Loki, as his own. These events take place much closer to the modern era. Meanwhile, new divine beings arrive on Earth, influencing humanity and spawning entire mythologies, from Greek to Egyptian. Humans themselves begin shaping the 9 realms. Their alliance with a noble dragon allows them to hold back the Soul Eaters and seal them behind a barrier of dragon scales. The demon Chthon carves devastating spells atop Mount Wundagore. These inscriptions are later copied into the Darkhold, which eventually falls into the hands of dark arts practitioners, including Morgan Le Fay. Elsewhere, a Celtic woman studies mystic arts to defend Earth from supernatural threats. Drawing energy from the dark dimension, she achieves immortality and takes the title of the Ancient One. Around the year 1000, cosmic unrest sparks a millennia-long war between the Kree and a rising empire, a war that continues all the way into the events of Guardians of the Galaxy. Back on Earth, a warlord named Wenwu discovers the Ten Rings, artifacts from another realm that grant him immortality and godlike power. Using them, he conquered nations and bent entire populations to his will. Around the same time, the Tesseract was hidden in Norway to keep it safely out of malicious hands, and human interest in magic began to grow rapidly.
In the late 15th century, the Salem trials take place, and soon after, Agatha drains the life force from the witches around her, becoming an outcast. Then we jump forward to World War II. Nazi officer Johann Schmidt tests an early version of the super soldier serum on himself, gaining tremendous strength, but losing his human appearance, leaving a crimson skull instead. He breaks away to form the Hydra faction and discovers the Tesseract to build his own advanced army. At the same time, Steve Rogers volunteers for the American Super Soldier program. The experiment succeeds, but Dr. Erskine is assassinated and his research disappears. Steve goes AWOL to rescue his best friend Bucky Barnes and becomes an active soldier on the front lines. During the war, Bucky is captured by Soviet forces, undergoes brainwashing, receives a cybernetic arm, and is turned into the Winter Soldier. Red Skull is sucked into a wormhole after misusing the Tesseract, while Cap is frozen beneath the ice. Peggy Carter continues working with Howard Stark, and together they form S.H.I.E.L.D. Meanwhile, Hydra quietly infiltrates the US government, steering historical events from the shadows. Around the same time, the first widows of the Red Room appear in the Soviet Union, and in the 1950s, several African-American soldiers are exposed to a new version of the super soldier serum. Meanwhile, Howard establishes Stark Industries and becomes the world's top weapons manufacturer. In the 1970s, Arnim Zola transfers his mind into a supercomputer. Hank Pym discovers the formula for shrinking and enlarging particles, and Janet is lost inside the quantum realm. The celestial Ego arrives on Earth, falls in love with Meredith Quill, and later their son Peter is born. In the 1990s, Carol Danvers absorbs energy from the Tesseract and gains her superhuman abilities. At this point, Thanos begins seeking the Infinity Stones, wiping out entire populations. Across the galaxy, the High Evolutionary conducts genetic experiments, creating the Sovereign and Rocket. Inside the quantum realm, Janet joins a resistance movement. Back on Earth, the Winter Soldier murders Tony Stark's parents, and Carol returns to settle the conflict involving the Skrulls. From here, Nick Fury conceives the Avengers Initiative. In 2008, Tony Stark showcases his weapons in the Middle East before being kidnapped by the Ten Rings. This marks the beginning of this cinematic saga we all know. Tony publicly becomes Iron Man. Bruce Banner, exposed to gamma radiation, transforms into the Hulk, indirectly causing the emergence of Abomination and mutating Stearns. General Ross uses the latter to strengthen his political ambitions. S.H.I.E.L.D. recruits Natasha through Barton. Mark Spector encounters the moon god Khonshu, and on the other side of the world, Shang-Chi becomes a master of Kung Fu. In Asgard, Loki tricks Thor into attacking the frost giants of Jotunheim, leading to the Thunder God's banishment to Earth. After returning home, Loki seeks support from Thanos. Around that time, Steve Rogers is thawed out, and soon, the Avengers assemble for the first time, culminating in the Battle of New York, an event whose consequences ripple far into the future.
For example, Daredevil starts waging his personal war against the crime lord Wilson Fisk. Adrian Toomes builds a criminal network that sells weapons made from salvaged Chitauri tech, while Kate Bishop decides to pursue archery seriously. Sometime later, Hydra's hidden conspiracy is exposed. Thor recovers the Reality Stone, S.H.I.E.L.D. falls apart, and the Avengers create Ultron. And after their clash, Hulk ends up stranded on Sakaar as a gladiator. The team also gains Wanda and Vision. After the battle in Sokovia, Helmut Zemo chooses to take revenge on the superheroes for the loss of his family. Over time, their actions create strong public backlash, and world governments push for the Sokovia Accords to regulate people with superhuman abilities. the Avengers eventually break apart. Meanwhile, plenty of other things unfold. The Guardians of the Galaxy form, defeat Ronan, claim the Power Stone, and later encounter Ego, Quill's father. Scott Lang becomes the new Ant-Man under Hank Pym's guidance. Doctor Strange prevents Dormammu's invasion using the Time Stone. Thor returns after 2 years of searching for the Infinity Stones and discovers that Loki has been impersonating Odin. Hela seizes Asgard, and Thor recruits Hulk and Valkyrie into the Revengers team. At the same time, Killmonger challenges T'Challa for the throne of Wakanda. Step by step, the story leads us toward the confrontation with Thanos, which begins with Loki's sacrifice. The Avengers regroup, but the snap erases half of all life in the universe. After this, the timeline diverges sharply. New branches appeared, and Marvel steps directly onto the minefield of the multiverse. 5 years pass. The heroes travel to different moments in time to retrieve the Infinity Stones, but in doing so, they bring another version of Thanos into their present. Hulk uses the restored Infinity Gauntlet to bring everyone back. During the final battle, Iron Man sacrifices himself, while Cap and Loki find themselves in alternate timelines. Steve chooses to live a full life with Peggy and eventually hands the shield to Sam. Loki, having escaped from the alternate 2012, ends up in the Gobi Desert before being taken in by the Time Variance Authority. For a while, he assists them in tracking a temporal offender, but eventually witnesses the birth of the multiverse, opening the door to countless new realities. And at this point, it's best to pause. Beyond this moment, the story becomes so tangled that it dives headfirst into world-to-world collisions. Spider-Man gathers his own crew. Quantum Mania bends physics and time. Loki becomes the keeper of the sacred timeline. And Deadpool, well, Deadpool is Deadpool. So if you enjoyed this format, let us know in the comments, and we'll unravel every twisted thread of the multiverse, because it lays the foundation for Marvel's next phase, and the upcoming Mutant Saga. That's all for today, friends. See you soon in the next videos.